Hello everyone. So today I want to continue to read to you from my novel Under a Namibian Sky. It's a contemporary romance novel and it's set in Namibia. So, chapter 3. As the sun set behind the dunes and the sky turned a dark velvet blue, Naomi felt herself relaxing even more in Luca's presence. There was something secure about the dark, something safe that protected her from his piercing eyes, which made her feel as though he could see deep into her soul. She let out a sigh. Isn't this beautiful? Is Italy like this? Yes, and yes. She could hear his smile. Italy is a different kind of beautiful, just as old perhaps, or not. I read somewhere that the Namib Desert is the oldest desert in the world. But yes, Italy is beautiful in another way. This is so raw, so naked, and... He stopped, clearly searching for the words to describe his feelings. Massive, huge. It makes one feel so small, so insignificant. Do you feel it? Yes. Naomi felt surprised and relieved that he'd said the things she could relate to so well. Surprised because she didn't expect it from someone like him, and relieved because it was a way to connect with him. He'd described exactly the effect that sitting in the desert had on her at any time of the day or night. But this time was her favourite. Dusk brought such magic when owls flew on silent wings and night animals awoke. She was glad she could spend this time with Luca, just this once. She knew no matter what else happened in her life, this moment, with this man who was so beautiful he seemed unreal, will live in her memories forever. She could feel the beauty of his soul, although he was, no doubt, a spoiled brat. She decided to forgive him for trying to flirt with her earlier. It was probably just his way. Besides, she wasn't interested in him. Her body just needed to understand that too. What are you thinking, amore? Luca's voice was so close, his question so unexpected. When Naomi turned to look at him, she realized his face was only inches from hers. What was he doing? She felt a kind of panic, but the warmth of his breath on her lips felt natural and right somehow. Just as his kiss seemed inevitable, he appeared to change his mind. He leaned away from her, sat back on his elbows and crossed his long legs at his ankles. Why does he persist in trying to spoil things? She didn't mean about the near kiss. She was perfectly clear she meant that he insisted on flirting with her so. Perhaps he thinks she would like it. Maybe it worked well with other women. Well, he was in for a big surprise with her. Yes, he was charming, and because of that, his physical nearness was slightly disturbing. Yes, she had a sense of the beauty that lived inside him, but that didn't mean he could assume anything with her. She certainly didn't want or need complications with amorous guests in her life. Thank God he'd be gone again in a few days. Beside her, Luca sighed again. This is heavenly. I could stay here all night. But just then, his stomach growled so loudly that they both burst out laughing. Naomi was still laughing when she collected their glasses. Well, you may want to stay here, but your stomach obviously disagrees. Before she could move, Luca quickly stood and helped her up. The touch of his firm, capable hand sent tingles throughout her body. She shivered, and he took it to mean she was feeling cold. He slid an arm around her shoulders, and the heat from his body instantly penetrated hers. She didn't correct him. How would she explain it? Luca spoke near her ear. But perhaps, After dinner, if you're not busy, we could come again. She wasn't sure it would be a good idea, but Luca was the client. How could she refuse? Of course, I'll see what I can do. She extricated herself from his arm as naturally as she could and walked to the back of the truck to deposit their used glasses and to lock up so they could return to the lodge. He waited for her and helped her up into the vehicle again before walking around to the front to slide into his seat beside her. Her body was still tingling from the intimacy of their touch, but Luca seemed unaffected by it. Instead, he commented about how dark the desert was at night, how you could hardly see anything but for the extraordinary starlight. He took more pictures of the Milky Way and pointed out star constellations. It intrigued her. He seemed to have another hobby other than photography and painting. He told her about the stars over Italy and regaled her with tales from his home as they made their way back to the lodge. It confirmed her earlier thoughts that he'd only been flirting with her, and it had meant nothing. She felt relieved. Or did she? Luca's voice was soft, as though he didn't want to disrupt the magic they'd experienced. That was great. Thank you again. He helped Naomi from the truck, again hesitated, standing very close to her, their bodies nearly touching, his head slightly lowered as though he would kiss her. Then he seemed to change his mind and walked away with a smile, a wave, and a "Ciao, see you later." Naomi stood rooted to the spot and watched as his broad shoulders disappeared around the corner on his way to the dining room and a much-needed meal. Then she quickly went into the kitchen and to her own dinner. Chef had prepared a fantastic feast, but Naomi wasn't hungry and nibbled at the food on her plate. Why did she allow Luca to disturb her so? He was just a guest and would be gone again in a few days. Guests did that all the time. Why was it suddenly different with him? She willed herself to imagine her life as it was before he came on the scene. It was peaceful. She'd been content. She wanted that again. Auntie Elsa cast anxious glances at Naomi, but said nothing. Instead, she concentrated on her food. It was Auntie Elsa's habit to get to her guests as soon as possible after dinner, to inquire if everything was to their taste, and to solve any problems, should there be any. Naomi watched for the moment her adoptive mother got up from the table. She followed Auntie Elsa out of the kitchen. He asked for an after-dinner outing into the desert. Maybe I can ask Chef for some dessert and coffee to take along. An excellent idea! Take what you need. I'm sure Luca will love it. A frown appeared between Auntie Elsa's eyes. Perhaps it's something we should offer anyway. Without waiting for Naomi's response, Auntie Elsa continued her way towards the dining room. Naomi stared at her beloved adoptive mother's retreating back. What was she to make of Auntie Elsa's sudden peculiar behaviour? Again, Naomi hoped it was nothing serious and decided to talk to Auntie Elsa at the earliest opportunity to find out what was going on. Naomi returned to the kitchen to find Chef. Behind her, a commotion broke out, and as she turned around to find her best friend holding court, Kerry's eyes positively glittered with excitement. "Oh my God, that's a great idea!" She'd overheard Naomi talking to Chef about refreshments for Luca for their after-dinner excursion into the desert. Kerry interrupted their conversation. "We should definitely offer it as an extra and charge for it." Naomi had to smile. Kerry was always thinking of the business, how to expand it, and how to make it more attractive to their guests. Kerry had been working hard to make a favourable impression on Auntie Elsa when the time came to put in her request to become Desert Lodge's next manager. Naomi had no doubt that Kerry would succeed, and she supported her friend's every effort. "Yes, Auntie Elsa said the same thing when I asked her about it a moment ago." Kerry continued as though she hadn't heard Naomi, her mind on her prize. I can't believe we've never thought of doing it before. I bet Ilse at Solitaire and Hein at Watersprite have never thought of it either. I can't wait to see their faces when they realise what we're doing. Not that they'll hear it from me." Kerry tapped a forefinger conspiratorially against her nose. Everyone in the kitchen was smiling. They all knew how competitive Kerry was with the other lodgers in the area. Her sometimes wacky ideas to outdo the others was a source of great amusement. Kerry left the kitchen talking to herself, evidently on a mission. "I wonder, maybe we could build a watchtower at the waterhole, and how cool that Luca is here now. Maybe we could make a deal with Luca and our Marty for—" Naomi knew that Kerry would most likely be in the office until early morning hours again, perfecting her proposal for this new scheme of hers, whatever it was. Naomi had finished the arrangements for refreshments and for the truck to be adequately supplied. Once again, she checked the walkie-talkie's battery and the rifle behind her seat. She was gone for only a few minutes, but by the time she arrived back at the truck, she found Luca in conversation with Santina and Auntie Elsa. "Luca raved about his excursion earlier, so Santina and I have decided to come along. I've arranged for extra refreshments for us." It was good that Auntie Elsa seemed to be back to her old self again, but relief and disappointment washed through Naomi's body in equal measure. She surprised herself when she understood she'd been looking forward to more time alone with Luca. Why? Perhaps she'd enjoyed his attention more than she'd realised. Perhaps it was for the best that Santina and Auntie Elsa went with them. Luca would have to behave himself with them there. Naomi smiled, nodded, and went to the driver's side. Luca quickly walked to her side and, as before, helped her into the truck. Then he took long strides around to the other side to help Santina and Auntie Elsa up. When he was satisfied that they were sitting comfortably, he slid into the seat next to Naomi, his camera equipment already stored at his feet. Naomi enjoyed the conversation between her three companions, but didn't feel pressure into contributing. Instead, she focused on driving the vehicle into the black night and staying on the well-worn tracks. The further she drove into the desert, the more she knew she didn't want to take Luca back to their place with the others there. She took another direction, to other dunes. She knew it was a good place to enjoy the vastness of the desert by the weaker light of the half-moon and the marvel at the sight of the Milky Way above their heads. When they'd reached the right spot, everyone clambered down onto the soft sand. Luca was once again taking pictures of the surrounding night. He had some serious equipment that allowed him to take photos at night, and Naomi wondered if she'd ever see the photos he took. After she'd lit a small campfire for warmth and protection against any predators, she leaned against the bonnet of the truck. She could practically hear the deep silence of the desert. The silence didn't last long as Santina and Auntie Elsa's voices joined the night sounds around them, but they spoke in whispers. The vastness seemed to inspire their reverence. Each found a spot on the dune in front of the truck and leaned back to admire the stars that lay like jewels the Milky Way had strewn above them through the black sky. Only Luca was still standing, with a camera pointed towards the dunes ahead of them. After a while, he found a spot beside Naomi and sat down, his camera balanced on his thighs. "Thank you, Amore. This is beyond anything I've ever experienced. I have no words to describe the beauty of this place." He spoke with such sincerity that Naomi believed him immediately. Moments later, Santina sighed. "This is the closest to heaven I think one can ever get on earth." Her voice told of her awe. "I want to come back here for my birthday in July." Auntie Elsa, as always, was genuinely interested in her guests. "That would be wonderful! What date is your birthday?" Naomi knew Auntie Elsa was already thinking about how to make Santina's birthday special. She was only half listening to the two women planning the party, but caught the fact that they shared a birthday. She could believe it. Auntie Elsa was such a warm, kind, and generous soul, and Santina appeared to be the same. Suddenly, Luca spoke near her ear, giving Naomi a little fright. When he saw her hand clamped over her heart, he took it in both of his. "Oh, sorry for frightening you. I was after some dessert and coffee." The heat from his hands flowed through her body once again, but she pulled her hand away from his in such a way she hoped didn't offend him. "Of course." She quickly got up and walked around to the back of the truck to unlock the compartment that housed the lovely goodies Chef had prepared for them. But when she looked up, she realized Luca had followed her and was standing very close to her. She had to admit she felt flattered by all the attention he was paying her, but she wasn't an idiot. She wouldn't let his little game affect her. He was no doubt used to doing this with other women. She wouldn't allow him to play with her like this, and then, when he'd had his fun, cast her aside to carry on with his life. Who did he think he was? Luca held the tray for Naomi to load their desserts and coffees. "Ah, Chef has prepared a scrumptious dessert for us, I see." Naomi followed as he carried the tray around the truck to where Santina and Auntie Elsa sat. Luca unfolded the tray's legs and placed it on a harder, smoother piece of ground that was part of the track for the desert vehicles. Soon everyone was enjoying a lovely dessert and strong hot coffee, each having made a little hole in the sand to support their coffee mugs. Sounds of appreciation and the usual night sounds were all that disturbed the magical quiet. Naomi noticed Santina and Auntie Elsa throwing occasional glances towards her and Luca before smiling knowingly at each other. Their eyes were twinkling in the light from the crackling fire. She hoped they weren't thinking what she thought they were thinking. It was clear to her that Luca was just playing a little game with her. She had no interest in him whatsoever, other than enjoying somewhat the attention he was giving her and appreciating and savouring his exceptional beauty. But that was all. A frown appeared between her eyes. What she did not need was their meddling. In the distance, a zebra barked. Luca spoke with melodramatic alarm. "Quick, let's finish. It seems we're going to have company, and I'm not sharing this delicious dessert with anyone." Luca followed his statement by making exaggerated sounds of eating faster. It was so unexpectedly funny that all three women burst out laughing. Everyone helped to pack up, while Luca put out the fire with sand. They filled the drive back with more laughter as Luca entertained them with tales of his own failed attempts at cooking, and Santina chipped in to elaborate on the details. Naomi dropped Luca and Santina off as close to their suites as she could get before driving to park the truck under the porch outside the back door. That way, it would be easier for the kitchen staff to reload the vehicle for the next morning's sunrise safari. Auntie Elsa leaned towards Naomi and gave her a kiss on the cheek. "That was wonderful. Thank you, Naomi. You did well. They seemed like lovely people. I'll see you in the morning, darling. Night-night." Naomi watched as Auntie Elsa left herself through the back door before following her. Whatever was the matter earlier in the day seemed to have gone completely. Naomi breathed a sigh of relief. As she walked down the corridor to her room, Kerry came out of the office, her thumb and forefinger pinching the top of her nose. Naomi stopped in front of her friend. "Tired?" "Uh-huh. It's later than I thought." Kerry's sudden bright smile belied her evident fatigue. "But I think I've got it. I may even have thought of some great new ways to grow our revenue and promote the lodge in a new way. It involves Luca. I'll tell you all about it tomorrow. Night-night." "Wait! You can't say that and then just leave." But Kerry winked at Naomi and waved as she turned. "Tomorrow! Nighty-night!" Naomi knew there was no point in pursuing Kerry. She could be stubborn. Instead, Naomi walked to her room, closed the door and leaned against it. What a day! How was she going to cope with Luca for the rest of his stay? Why did Auntie Elsa have to appoint her to look after him? Thank you for listening. Thank you for liking and sharing my videos, and thank you so much for subscribing to my YouTube channel. Until next time.